everybody, and welcome back to 31 Days of Indie Horror. I'm your host, Jonathan Moody. I'm here with.
Hey, I'm Don Anelli. It's great
Uh,
to be here.
yeah, hey, Don. Don's been on the show before a while back, I think. I don't know. It's been a couple years at least. So, happy to have you back, Don.
Yeah, great to be back.
Yeah. So, we're gonna be talking about the 2000 and I want to say seven or
I
nine,
found
the 2007.
2007. I found 2007 pretty regularly, although yeah, it is one of those that has a couple different releases. But 2007 is the one I've seen the most.
Yeah, 2007 film Feast of Flesh. And which mainly stars like Amy Lynn Best, Mike Watt, who both are producing. They produced it together. Mike wrote and directed the film. Those guys are these awesome filmmakers. I want to say they're from Pennsylvania, but they might be from like West Virginia-ish. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure. But I know I met those guys at one of the Pennsylvania horror cons. So it's
Hmm.
been a while, but I remember being able to meet them. I used to have them on my radio show when I did the Independent Corner, and they would talk about all the stuff, I think including Feast of Flesh because it was 2008 or 9. Then I would have them on there, and so they've done a lot of stuff. One of my favorite movies that they did is a movie called Severe Injuries, and I want to buy. There's like a Blu-ray of that, and I want to get that at some point. But they did this movie, and it's basically a vampire brothel, vampire whorehouse, kind of thing. And we'll go into like the story in a second, because there's a pretty lengthy story with it. But I do want to real quick touch on some of the actors that are involved. So Amy Lynn Best plays Elizabeth, which I guess is I want to say that was supposed to be Elizabeth Bathory.
Yeah, that was my take on it too. Because it's not like really a joke, but it's kind of like it's just close enough. Because her real name is Erzabet, which is I think that's the Hungarian translation of the name.
Okay. Um,
Yeah. Her real name is Erzabet. That's what everybody always everybody always gets that wrong. Is that her name is not Elizabeth Bathory? It's Erzabet.
uh, so it was kind of like a mixture then,
Well,
Elizabeth.
it's just more of those. I think that's just like what, like I said, I think that's just what the Hungarian version of her name is.
Okay.
So I mean I could be wrong, but I know for a fact that her name is Erzabet. I think everybody just calls her Elizabeth just because it's I think that's just a translation of the name. Plus, it's like really easy for Americans to say.
Yeah, and what I liked was that they also have Deborah Shawn playing Carmilla, and I'm gonna have a version of Carmilla in the Echo Lake universe because Carmilla is the first vampire,
Right.
supposedly, that was ever like, kind of discussed or whatever. There's a few first vampire kind of thing, and I really like that. I like that Deborah Shawn played the first vampire, so she turned Elizabeth, and Elizabeth it was the one that took over, and became. I guess she came to this town and made a brothel, out of it or whatever. And so I guess like this. So okay, so after them is also Stacy. I'm gonna really fuck up this name. So I'm sorry, Stacy, but Bartle Bow Jims. I don't know. Sorry, I can't say that. That's a really tough name. Because it's like GMYS. What is that?
Give me 1 second here. Let me bring it up myself because I'm not the best, but I can pronounce some of these weird European names. Um, so it looks like Bartlebog Gugmes. Yeah, the GMYS is kind of odd.
Gimes? I don't know.
I
Um,
know the first part though is Bartlebaugh.
Bartleball. Okay. Uh, and then there's Sofia Smirnova. She
Right.
played Zora. The biggest problem I have with this movie was I didn't know who each of the chicks were. Like, I my biggest problem was they pretty much made all the guys have like these characters that stood out and you knew who each person was. But the
Yeah,
women in there, other than Elizabeth and Terry, which they also called Teresa at times, so it was like they did two different, it almost felt like two different names, you
yeah.
know? Um,
Well, it's the weird thing is that normally in these kinds of in these kinds of films, you get the establishing shot where, in this case, it's when she brings them out to introduce, like who's gonna take who for the night. When, the guys first arrive at the brothel, it's like, okay, who are you guys gonna take? We have this one here, we have this one here, we've got this one here. And she kind of just goes, okay, this one here is more for like the dominatrix. This
mm,
one here is more for the quiet, shy, introverted one. And this one here is more, like if you like them a little bit more exotic. But we don't get names attached to them at that point. Like that's the perfect time to, give them an introduction and to tell us who they are and give us like a character. Where, like you were saying with the guys, we end up getting that where we get um Conrad, we get Seth, we get we get introduced to the guys pretty.
Sheridan, I think that guy's name was the
Yeah, because they had that one guy that had like the weird name, which is like the cult, like, well, I mean, we'll talk about him later, but yeah, each of the guys get introduced, and we get a sense of who they are pretty
and
regularly.
they say their names. And so
Right.
that's the
So it's
problem with the brothel is like
yeah,
they
it's like
never Elizabeth never looks at any of the girls and said, Zora,
you know,
go over there and do
yeah,
that,
it's like, okay, do you want, the mistress, and she introduces them as Zora, or,
Right.
do
I
you
would have
want
loved that. I
do
think
you want like
that should
Carmen?
have happened.
Do you want like Carlotta, who's our introverted, shy one, or yeah, something like that, where we can say, okay, that's the name to a face. I know who's
Right.
who.
I mean, even like, because some people don't like that, but I love it because I want to know who these people are because other than that, I have to look them up on IMDb and try to figure out,
And not
deduction.
having a name, not having a profile picture just makes it absolutely awful.
That's the worst. Some of them have profile pictures like you said Carlotta, right?
No, Debbie has one.
Carlotta,
Um,
the girl who plays
yeah, Carlotta,
Carlotta
actually,
does.
yeah, she does.
Yeah, it's Rochelle Williams. She's
But yeah,
wonderful. She's been in a bunch of indie films, and I absolutely adore her. Um,
I have seen her name pop up a few times. I didn't recognize her in this one though, but yeah, I do know the name now that I'm looking her up. Yeah.
yeah, she's been in a bunch of stuff. And then Gwendolyn playing Jacqueline. That doesn't help. A chick named Gwendolyn. I mean, do they just is this that is not her? Well, she's also in Brink's Tales of Horror. By the way, a lot of these people are because Mike Watt also worked on that, and that is a movie that I'm going to be picking up pretty soon from Brink herself because it just caught my eye. I was like, I want to, I want a movie that a DVD of a Brink anthology. Like that's awesome. I love Brink Stevens. She's like to me, she's adorable. Her and Deborah Shawn and Felissa Rose and all these
Yeah,
scream queens out there.
I am really really big on Debbie Rashawn. I would even put her over Linnea and Brink.
Well, well, I think it's so different
The
because
problem with her is that she never had the mainstream hit. She always stayed in the B movies. But I think she's a better actress. I think she's got better range. I think she's just as good at playing unhinged and psychotic. And I think it's I'm trying to think of the movie here. I think it's that Lovecraftian ripoff, Colors from the Dark, where she has that psychotic break and that mental instability that you see like drags throughout the course of the movie. I think that's probably her best film. But I've always been a huge champion of Debbie Rochon. I've always loved her, and that's actually how I found the film out.
originally.
Yeah, when I originally found it, because I actually watched this years ago on mail order Netflix.
Wow, so you
The,
actually okay, so that
the
doesn't even
DVD,
exist anymore.
yeah, the DVD version of Netflix. That was how I first saw this because I went through a huge Well, I actually ended up having a free subscription because I won a contest from like a work thing, and they gave us like month free of Netflix for like a free trial. And this was one that I was putting in, and I had no idea what it was about. I just looked it through, and it said Debbie Rochon. All right, I'll put you in. You
Uh,
know, yeah. I put this one in, and I want to say it was a film called Blood Relic.
I've heard of that movie. Yeah, I think I even
I
own it.
think that was one. It was some slasher at like an Air Force base.
Nice.
I think that's the movie I'm thinking of because I mean this is like going back thinking 15 years or so. But yeah, I distinctly remember this one being one of them just because Debbie Rochon was in it, and that was
Yeah.
one of the. I had like a huge thing for her back then. So yeah, that was the first time I'd actually heard of this was because Debbie was in it.
Have you met her yet?
I'm not a con goer.
Oh, really? You don't go to conventions?
I didn't know about it, and I didn't know it was a thing until it was way too late.
What do you mean way too late? It's never too late. You can go to any
I
con at
wasn't
any time.
No, I didn't really become a big I wasn't like big into the community until 2018, 2019. And I shouldn't have to tell you what the next thing is.
Okay.
2020 COVID.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
so yeah, I didn't really know cons were a thing until like 2018, 2019. And
And then that year hit, and
yeah, and
then
then 2020 was a thing. So yeah, as much as I like to make it seem that I'm a big fan, I the con is the one thing that I'm not as a big fan of in the genre. So it's not really a thing for me.
okay.
But the other
I,
thing for me is that where I live, I'm unfortunately at the stage where I can either afford to go or I can afford the autographs, but I can't afford both.
right.
So I can pay for the ticket to get there, or I can pay to have people sign my stuff, but I can't do both.
Yeah,
So
it's like because there's a Tidewater Horror Con coming up, not this weekend, but next, and I'm planning to go on like Sunday if I get a chance, and like John Dugan will be there from what is it, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Lachlan Monroe, who I want to see again. I met years ago, but I'd like to see again. And so I'm hoping to go, but like may not, like it just depends. It's
yeah,
I haven't like I just haven't had money,
yeah,
and so
that's
if I
that's
like
that's my
I get
thing.
your thing because like if I have the money to do it, I'll go.
Yeah,
If I don't, I'll just have to miss
yeah,
it. But
yeah, that's
I
my
mean,
eternal
and
struggle.
yeah, I mean, I was gonna go to Cinema Wasteland this year, which I think Debbie's been to before. I met Debbie for the Blood of the Beach, and she was super sweet. The best thing was when I like I would communicate with her through Facebook, back in the day. I don't even think she has a Facebook anymore. But I would communicate through her with that, and then she would know who I am because I'd be, respond, right? And so I
Yeah,
said, "Hey, my name, Jonathan Moody." She was like, "Oh my God!" And so, and the next time that I saw her again, she recognized me right away, and came up and talked to me. But, that's the thing. With that, she was really super sweet. I love her, but I wanted to go to the Wasteland this year, in October. That's definitely not happening because my buddy Paul and I have to drive there. Then we have to spend money on a rent a car. Then we have to spend money on the hotel. Then we have to spend money buying shit, because that's,
yeah.
right. And it's
Preaching to
just,
the choir.
yeah. So, because
Yeah,
if I go to a horror convention, generally, I'm looking for
you know,
DVDs and
yeah,
Blu-rays and stuff.
you wanna do something, you wanna have, somebody sign your prop, you wanna, buy a, autographed DVD or
Yeah.
book or something.
Or just get a picture. Like I really don't like the autographs as much as I like pictures with the person. There's a couple of people I'm kind of sad that I just got autographs from and never got a picture from. So from now
Mm,
on, I've always like Edward Herman, who passed away years ago.
yeah,
I got an autograph from him, and now I'm like, oh, I kind of wish I got a, you know, I wish I got picture with him because that to me means more. I can put that
Yeah.
on Facebook, and that means
Yeah, I
more
mean,
than
you
autograph.
know, I mean, like the autographed item, you can, probably buy that off of eBay, but
Mm,
the picture
I
proves that
would
you met
never do
them.
that.
But I'm just saying is that, yeah, okay, you got their autograph on something, but it doesn't really mean much. It's not like
Yeah,
you actually, you don't necessarily have to have met them to have their autograph. But if you get a
exactly.
picture with them, then like there's the proof that you actually did meet them and you did interact with them.
Exactly. Yeah, because yeah, you're right. You could buy the outer. Anyway, and like I said, I believe I've met Amy Lynn and Mike at, I think I want to say it was Horror Find weekend, but it could have been a Horror Realm, which is they're both in PA, so I went to both, and everything. So I'm not sure. But I met a lot of people. Like Pennsylvania had some of the greatest horror conventions and things. And so I just, I love these guys who made this. Let me go back to some more of the cast and then we'll go right into the story. So you said Conrad, he's played by Don Bumgardner. That's an easier one to say. Aaron Bernard plays Seth. Zoe Hunter plays Jess, one of the other. I'm guessing I think was she one of the girls that.
I I think she's the girl with the mercenary team
Okay.
because
Oh, okay. So she's the one that spoke like the Irish accent as well, right? Or
yeah,
whatever.
because they had that one girl because it was the mercenary team that showed up and they had the one girl with them who was a redhead.
Yeah,
And
that's Zoe Hunter then. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's her.
Yeah, okay, that totally makes sense. All right. And then there's Mike Watt played Sheridan, which okay, let me ask you this. When he's speaking in a very Irish accent and the guy says something about Dutch, you know, and he's like, "How could you guess?" Right? And you're like, did she like look around and go, "Wait, what?" Because like that's how I did, because I was like,
Yeah,
he's
it's
obviously Irish accent, not Dutch.
yeah, it's an odd line. Just I think he was referring to somebody just named Dutch, but it's really hard to tell just because one, the accent's off, but two, the subtitles or closed captions on Tubi don't help. And
I didn't even watch the subtitles or whatever.
I had to put him on for his scene just because I don't know if that's an affected accent or I mean, you know more than me. I mean, I couldn't tell if that's
I
his.
liked it. I thought it was not a good Irish accent.
But
That's what it
I'm just
sounded
saying is
like
that
to me.
I'm just saying is that I couldn't tell if it was like a put on or if it was someone that if that's genuinely him or not.
Oh no,
But
no, 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 no. That's he wanted to, Mike doesn't as an
okay,
Irish
yeah, that's what
or
I'm saying.
whatever.
That's what I was gonna say. I didn't know if that was his genuine accent or put on for the movie, but it was kind of hard to tell because for me, unfortunately, Irish is just one of those accents that my ear is really, really sensitive to, and it's kind of hard to pick out what's going on just because of the way that they linger on syllables or vowels or whatever. So I always, unfortunately, with Irish films, I always have to turn the closed captions or subtitles on just to figure their stuff out. But yeah, his introduction is pretty weird. Not only that, but the entire scene where he does it because he's meeting up with the two guys, and it's almost like he overhears them but then makes it sound like he was expecting them to be there all along, and the entire thing just comes off really weird.
Yeah, it's like well, the two guys are talking. All right, well, I guess let's go into the story and then we'll
Yeah,
go
I
back
mean,
to
we
the
can,
actors.
yeah,
All
go
right,
back
a
to
little bit.
that.
But the story is this one girl, we see the first girl, and that's Teresa, I believe, is being
Yeah.
like attacked by this guy, and then uh Elizabeth kills the guy and saves her and basically adopts her as part of her brothel. And so all of a sudden, we're kind of like, okay, we get it. There's a vampire. So this is a vampire story. So then, you find this poker game going on. And in the poker game, the winner of the poker game, I guess the one of the people threw in tickets to this brothel, and that was going to be the, I guess grand prize or whatever, right? Which I don't know how much they're worth. You pretty much have to be invited to it, right? Like, so I
Yeah,
guess
it's one where it's odd. The town makes it seem like they're aware of it, but they don't go near it. So, I
Right.
mean, we can, we'll come onto that in a little bit, but they know it's there, they're aware of it, and they have a long-standing tradition of the vampires attack tourists, but they don't advertise where it is. So you have to be invited there. And then I think that's supposed to help with the cover up because, there's no like physical way to trace it back to them. Like they take like she makes a big deal when they arrive there to like take their tickets and welcomes them in because they
Yeah.
have because when they get there they have that whole scene where they okay who's paying for who, and then they pass the tickets to the clerk at the desk, and then they take them in and they meet Elizabeth and the others at the back. So it's kind of like a, I guess, a way of like ensuring that there's no way to trace it back to them even though
Right.
everybody's aware of it. So I mean, it's not the most outlandish way to present it, but it's just one where just dropped in on it, it just makes for an odd first impression.
Well, it was weird because they get that one ticket, right? Or whatever.
Right.
And then they use it for both of the people. Like,
I think it's maybe more of like a party kind of a thing. It's like, okay, like a group of five maybe can come in with the ticket,
and then
or
they can ask for yeah, a threesome. Like that just seemed a little weird to me. That
well,
feels like
that's
that
what I
would
was
need.
saying is that just dropped in on it like that. It makes for a weird first impression. Just yeah, we don't really get much in the way of the inner workings of the brothel. We just get, okay, they work on a ticket system. You have to present the ticket to the clerk at the desk to gain entry, and then once you do, you get introduced to the girls. But we don't
Right.
get introduced to them by name. We just
Right.
get introduced by, okay, here, do you want this girl? Do you want
Or
this girl?
yeah,
Do you want
like
that girl?
yeah, and then there's one guy there at the brothel that's like I guess waiting, you know, which I'm like, why is he
Yeah,
just like waiting there?
I didn't get his thing either. Like there's that guy that's standing off to the side,
Yeah.
and it looks like he was either waiting his turn or waiting for a friend or
I don't think he was waiting
something.
for a friend because he never said like they never say, "Is
Well,
your
that's what I was
friend
gonna say.
coming?"
That's what I was gonna say because I didn't know what he was waiting for, but it looked like he was just like, waiting for his turn, I guess.
I mean, maybe like you know how in haunted hay rides or haunted whatever, you have to wait for the line. It can't just be like you go in, you know,
Yeah,
and maybe they do that on purpose so that, but they don't know who's gonna show up, you know,
exactly. Yeah.
whenever they're
So
gonna show up. So, you know, my idea is like they can't, you know, they don't want the dude to go in there and then there already be the bloodbath happening and somebody screaming when they're, you know, when they're about to have new people there because that would already alert them that, you know, there's, you know, like
yeah,
I already thought like because the one dude that goes with them, right? He's like a single guy or whatever, and he goes with his two friends. Uh, what was his name? I want to say it was Tom. It wasn't Tommy, was it? Something like that. No, that was the other
uh,
guy. That's the other guy.
Tommy's the guy with the girl because they're the ones that get the threesome with the girl at the brothel.
Okay, so
Because yeah, because it's a couple, and then there's the other guy, and
yeah,
it
there's
turns out the couple hire one of the girls at the brothel for a threesome, and they say, okay, we'll get somebody for you too. Who do you want? And then he makes the excuse of saying, oh, I've got to go to work
right.
because he ducks out, and then
But I
that's
thought he
but he
was
but remember he ducks out to inform his friend who's waiting at the bar in town that his girlfriend is one of the workers at the brothel.
But wasn't that weird? Because like he got the ticket from the dude that was
Right.
gonna go with him, the friend. They were gonna go, and then the guy said, "I don't feel like going" or whatever. I don't want to go.
Right,
And he
because the one guy he makes the comment and saying, "I gotta go to work. Why did they call me into work now? Here's money. If I'm not back by the time you guys are done, get a cab home."
right.
So that guy leaves and he goes and visits his other friend at the bar in town and
But I'm
lets him know that Teresa, his ex-girlfriend, is working at the brothel.
but when I'm
So that's
yeah.
what I'm saying. Yeah, that whole thing is just incredibly weird, and it it was one of my main issues is that it feels too rushed. Like this feels more like this is something that should have had just a little bit more time to breathe.
Right,
Because I mean, we haven't really mentioned it, but the film is only like an hour and 18 minutes, and I mean, it zooms by. So a
right,
lot of this is something that it probably was a little bit more explained in an earlier draft and just got cut for budget.
right. Or time or whatever. Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
they
what I'm saying is
probably wanted it to be an hour, 18 minutes because, that way it is quicker and people,
right.
whatever. But then you lose, things
Yeah,
that
because
explain stuff.
that's what I'm just saying is that this whole thing is just really weird and awkward and kind of confused and rushed just
Mm,
because you get bits and pieces of how it works, but it's never really they don't really come together that well.
no, they don't. All right. So yeah, so the guy he goes to, his friend who he goes to tell him like his ex-girlfriend Teresa is working there. Um, like I think earlier in the movie, because he goes up and talks to him, was like, "There you are," or whatever, right? And he gets the ticket from him, right? Like he gets his
Right.
own ticket from the guy because he doesn't want to go. When it would have been interesting if it had he gone, because then he would have saw Teresa. So then he would have been like, "Oh shit, what are you doing here?" And it would have been very awkward and weird, but kind of an interesting. And did she not know like she noticed him, right? Teresa noticed the friend. Wouldn't she have gotten worried and probably said, I don't think he's leaving. I think he's going to tell my ex that I'm here, and
I
stuff."
got that feeling too. I got that feeling too, but I don't know if that was just her not knowing if he would go back or I
Or
mean,
if he really was
she was
going to work.
I mean, like the way he rushed out, it does kind of sound a little believable, but I don't know. I mean, like I said, just this whole thing is just really awkward and kind of confusing.
Yeah.
I get the feeling she does recognize him, but it's just one of those where maybe because she's recently turned, she doesn't have all of like the vampire qualities yet.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is the scene later on where they do have to, like they, when they're, maybe just jumping ahead a little, but when the vampire is done with the threesome, they do have to prod her along to feed and say, "You'll need this for your strength."
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it has something to do with how recently she's turned and whether or not like all of her vampire capabilities have kicked in.
Right.
So maybe that has something to do with it, but again, I'm kind of just putting things
Right.
together. It's not whether or not it's visible in the movie or not.
So, yeah, so he goes back to explain to his friend. That's when the dude overhears everything and he comes over and says, "I couldn't help but overhear."
Right,
Right? And
very.
all I wanted to be like was, no, you couldn't help but eavesdrop, but all right. And he's like talking about that specific brothel, and he's saying that's a bad brothel. That's a bad place to go to. You're gonna need us, basically, or whatever. So come with us and we will explain everything to you. But they're kind of being very cryptic. I mean, honestly, I would have been like, dude, I'm not going with you guys. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, they might have pulled a gun like they did later, but like, literally, like he could have said, dude, I'm not like, I don't know who you guys are, and
yeah. I
um,
mean, he makes a bad impression just because he's got the suit and tie on, and everybody else is like small town casual.
yeah,
So
and
it's just kind of one of those where it's like, yeah, he looks a little bit too unprepared for something.
yeah, he's a little sus, But so they go into the room and you meet Sheridan, who's like basically the head leader of the hunters, the vampire hunters. And he kind of explains a little bit of what's going on, but not I don't think enough to really like, for them to understand what they're
Yeah,
basically getting themselves into, because it was, gonna be a crazy situation. But did he? I'm trying to remember because I watched it yesterday, not today, so it's not as fresh in my mind. But I think he kind of tells them that sort of that they're vampires, right? Like he explains about the
He
vampire stuff.
mentions that they're not human. I don't think he drops the vampire bomb on them yet. I think that's when they kidnap Terry, is when he mentions that they're vampires.
Okay.
I
Okay.
know he because they react way too much like, "Oh my god, what the hell's going on? What are you guys doing?"
Right.
For for them to know that they were vampires from the very beginning. I believe he mentions that they're not human and not to be trusted, but I don't think he drops the V word on them because
Yeah.
the reaction when they kidnap Terry is way too convincing for them to not be aware that they're vampires.
Right.
Because they're bringing her in with, again, we're skipping ahead, but they bring her in with the cloth all wrapped up and they're trying to like make sure, don't get her by the windows, don't get her, put her in through here, like get her away from like away, get her out of the sunlight and put her in like the back room where like no sunlight can reach her. And then they're like, what are you guys doing to her? And it's when I think they put the money to her face and it burns. And that's when I think that they reveal what's going on. But
Hmm.
because it's what I'm saying, like that was the other thing is that it's not traditional like vampire things that they do where I mean, I don't know like how far ahead you want to go, but there's the scene where they try to return her by injecting holy water into her veins.
Yeah, that was a little weird because the holy water hurts them, so
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Where if you put it on their skin, it doesn't kill them, it burns them. But if you
so
inject
if
it
you
into their,
inject them,
it
uh,
turns you back to human.
um, but I
I mean,
mean,
it's an interesting idea. I don't know if I buy it.
it's lore. It's a different
Yeah,
lore, and
that's what I'm saying is that to just do it without explaining why, I think it's one where, again, maybe it was something that they had explained because they do that other thing too, where he puts, I think it's the dollar bill, and he puts it to her face, and it burns as if um he put like some kind of like a cross or symbol on, like on her chest because they always do that thing where they put the cross to their forehead and it leaves like the imprint on their forehead
mm,
because he does that trick once or twice where he puts the dollar bill or like the money clip to her face and it leaves like the burn mark on their face.
hmm.
So I don't know if it's one where the idea is not necessarily like religious symbols, but like something that they believe in or like like they devotedly follow or something like, he's always after the money because he does the whole thing for like, I'll save her, but you've got to pay me kind of a thing. Like
Hmm.
he's always after money. So maybe it's, maybe one of those things where, it doesn't just have to be religious. It has to be something that you're strongly and religiously attached to, affect them. But again, it's just one where it's not always explained. And
Mm.
I get the feeling that if the ideas are there, but it was something that just got trimmed for budget or trimmed for time just to like move the pacing along.
Or just maybe they were never explained. Nothing, some of the stuff may not been
Yeah.
explained. They might have thought that the audience would get it or figure it out themselves or whatever. But
I mean, it's obvious what he's trying to do, but it's just one where you need the full on explanation. I think that's the
yeah.
problem.
Well, I mean, some people are afraid to over explain things, or
Yeah.
whatever, because of, or if you have to explain it that maybe, then people just don't get it, and stuff. And so I understand that, but I'm like, sometimes
I think the
explanations are needed.
I think the idea is more like, okay, if you're trying to explain why a cross burns a vampire, I think you're doing it the wrong way. If you have to explain why, a dollar bill or like a bead or like, like the rosary beads, if you have to explain why they work, I think you have to do that just because it's not necessarily something that's common.
Mm-hmm.
The idea is there, but you still have to, make that final step. Even if you just say, it's not just the cross that works, it's all religious articles.
Right.
If you just drop that one
Just
line,
one line.
I
That's
I'm perfectly fine.
right.
It's it's not just a cross. Any religious symbol or artifact will do.
Or even the government stuff, anything
Yeah.
about God, whatever. Oh, whatever you have to explain. But
Yeah,
I get it. So, they kind of talk to him and they kind of get him to go to the brothel together and to retrieve Teresa. But like, I think Sheridan and the group were just like, if we don't get this chick, it doesn't matter. Like
yeah,
let's make sure we all basically live through this, or whatever. So they go there and they kind of kidnap her from the thing, which okay. So first of all, this girl leaves him, but they're like broken up, right? Like they're not together anymore.
yeah. Because
You know.
he always calls her an ex.
Right.
Because he never calls her girlfriend. He always calls her my ex.
Right. So, dude, if she left you like that and she's happy at this thing. Just leave her be. This is like
Yeah,
probably one of the most toxic boyfriends, exes ever because like, it's so bad that, and skipping ahead or whatever, when they kidnap her, she wants to go back to the
exactly.
vampire
Yeah,
stuff. Like she doesn't want to be with you, dude. And why are you gonna go back again? Like leave
yeah,
it just after a while I'm
yeah.
like,
I
why?
mean, if they change it around and they make it a brother and sister,
Mm-hmm.
that I would buy a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're right. If even if she's an ex, she gets attacked with another boyfriend. So she had already moved on. Because
Mm-hmm.
that's the opening of the movie.
Right.
She gets saved from the abusive boyfriend when Elizabeth kills him and then takes her.
Right.
So she had already moved on, found another boyfriend, regardless of whether or not he was an abusive or not, irrelevant. But she had already moved on. So now he comes off as the whiny petulant. I got to get my girl back, who's already moved on,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm going to team up with this group of sketchy mercenaries to invade this vampire brothel to take her back when the first sign that we see when we get her to safety away from there is to go back. I don't know if we're supposed to be on his side or if we're supposed to be on her side because I find Terry to be far more believable and relatable than I do the humans.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And once again, they were, I mean, okay, so they were kind of doing some messed up stuff. They weren't supposed to be, there was supposed to be a truce, and nobody was supposed to be, I guess, being eaten by like, anybody who went to that brothel wasn't supposed to be eaten by the vampires, or whatever.
No,
So,
I think the truce was the vampires are allowed to eat out of towners, not townspeople,
okay.
because that's why they have the ticket system. You have to have the ticket there because everybody in town knows where it is.
And as you said earlier, nobody wants to go to it,
Right.
you know.
Everybody knows where it is, but nobody wants to go there. So I think the truce is they don't eat townspeople, they eat out of towners. It would be easier to clean up because there's no, you just have to destroy a car or something. And
Yep,
I mean,
nobody will ever know,
yeah,
you
and
know.
you can, just say, well, maybe he was supposed to be here, but he never showed.
Maybe that's what all
You
the
know,
missing persons in the world, they all went to that brothel,
maybe.
you know?
But yeah, I took it more as the truce was the townspeople don't go to the brothel and kill them or maybe like do whatever, and then the vampires don't eat townspeople; they eat out of towners.
Well, okay, so in that case, how did they break the truce?
Maybe maybe it's the mercenaries invading the brothel to take the girl away.
But then, so, okay, so the mercenaries should have just said, like, should have just left it alone because that's
Right.
not their,
That's
because, like, that one dude, was he an out of towner? Like, or was he a townie?
I'm not sure because I don't think they ever explicitly stated it
Well,
because it
then why
looks
did he have to go to work? Because then he would have to go to
no,
work there in
the
that
work
town.
thing was just the excuse for him to leave.
Well, I get that, but like, where would he, if he said that, if he said, I have to go to work, wouldn't his friends be like, dude, you're out of town right now, which I guess he's not. I think they were townies, and these people that they ate were actually people that just wanted to try the brothel or whatever, like, that.
Yeah, but then that's more the vampires being in the wrong, whereas the film is always about the mercenaries being in the wrong.
Well, I think both of them are sort of in the wrong. They shouldn't have, like,
If the truth is vampires don't eat townies,
right,
mercenaries don't kill vampires.
right,
That's the truth.
right.
If we're to believe that the vampires are in the wrong, then they would know who would be a townsperson from the very beginning. They wouldn't have eaten the couple in the threesome.
That's true. Well, maybe they would have, and that's why how they broke the truce.
But the truth doesn't get brought up until they remove Terry from the premises.
The only other thought I could have is that maybe those two people were out of towners and his friends were people in
Maybe.
town. And they were just visiting from out of town. I don't know. It got very confusing. I like
Yeah,
if
that's what I was saying.
if I actually understood who was out of town. I mean, I'm
That's what
sorry,
I'm saying
Mike and
is that
Amy. I don't
I know,
get
but
it.
that's what I'm saying is that it makes it seem as if it's the mercenaries who are at fault because the
Mm,
vampires go on the offensive afterwards.
yeah,
So if it's the vampires breaking the truce, they would have done that when they ate the couple in the threesome
right.
because that's the opening of the movie. But then the truce doesn't get brought up until the mercenaries kidnap Terry.
Wait.
Because when they're explaining to them they're when they're
Oh, the
trying
mercenaries
to
kidnapped here. Yeah.
yeah, when the mercenaries kidnap Terry and then they go through the process of trying to return her, when they take her back to the lair and they, inject her with all the holy water and stuff like that, that's when they bring up the truce. And then we get the scene where we see Elizabeth and Carmilla together, and then they establish the truce for the audience because
Mm,
they mention how they came here, they did what they did, and now we have to do what we're going to do. And Carmilla is the one that leaves the brothel to Elizabeth because she can't do it anymore. Because they make that whole grand gesture of her like taking the heart out and stabbing it to pass the torch essentially.
mm,
That's when they establish the truce at that point there. It's for the audience more so because we're the only two in the room besides them
right.
because it's just the two of them in the room, and then we're watching that. So that's when they established the truce with the mercenaries because they did what they did. Now we have to do what we have to do. Unfortunately, I can't join you. You take over. Run it how you see fit.
Exactly.
So that to me says that it's the mercenaries who broke the truce, not the vampires.
Okay.
Because why would the vampires have to do what they do and they have to go out and kill if they were the ones that abided by the truce?
That's true.
That's to me that's just where I'm coming from here. Where
It's just a little
in
confusing, but it's all right.
yeah,
It's
that's what I'm
okay.
saying is that to me it feels more like the film was trying to paint the mercenaries as the one that broke the truce. Just like I said, just based on that one scene there, where if Carmilla and Elizabeth are in the wrong, why were they talking as if they had to go out and attack the mercenaries because they were the ones that did them wrong?
Right.
I mean, maybe I'm misreading it, but to
I
me, that's how I took it.
I think yeah, the mercenaries are the ones who were supposed to be wrong, but I mean, it wasn't mercenaries didn't break the truce. The vampires did. And they even say that, like you broke the truce. So they, which, but they also have that one girl who
Right,
went that they have chained up that went out and murdered somebody that I guess a townsperson. But I don't remember any kind of flashback of that or anything. Like I didn't see anything of that. So like I don't know like it was just talk because at the end of the thing to go completely skip to the end, the girl what is it? Teresa takes over.
right.
I don't know why. Why is Teresa taking over? Isn't there
I
other
think
people?
isn't she the last vampire standing?
Is she?
Because the mercenaries come in when the mercenaries launch the attack after
Oh, that's
Terry
right.
because when the
They
mercenaries attack after Terry escapes, because Terry goes back. Because remember when the whole thing fails, and then she attacks the mercenaries and escapes, and then she goes back. So then that's when the vampires show up and they have the final battle where
right,
the vampires and the mercenaries have the fight throughout the brothel. They end up killing Elizabeth. They kill Elizabeth, and then she ends up and she does the same thing that Elizabeth did to Carmela, where she takes the heart out of the jar and kills it, and
right,
then that's what kills her. And
hmm
then she ends up having the final confrontation with her ex, and
right,
it looks like he kills her, but we find out that he merely wounded her. Her vampire powers had kicked in, and then she ends up killing him. And I think she rips his throat out.
mm,
I
yeah.
think I think she rips his throat out and feasts on him. So it's like she's the last vampire left.
The Feast of Flesh.
Exactly.
I think that's where the title came from.
Yeah.
But it was I don't know. Like I said, my biggest problem with the movie was there wasn't enough explanation to who the characters were or what was going on exactly. It
Well, the fact that
was,
we're calling them mercenaries and vampires.
yeah, I would have hunters would have been better sounding because that's
Yeah.
usually vampire hunters are generally what, and as you said, they didn't even mention vampires to the dude at all. Like there's no kind of like mention about that. So like like, is that, are they afraid to say the V word because people laugh at that, maybe, but then they see
Well,
it and they see
well, you
the
look at the
vampires.
cover art. I mean, the cover art is a girl with the vampire
Well, no, no.
fangs.
I'm saying for the
I'm just
mercenaries
saying.
to talk to the guy,
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
to the
I know
main
what you mean.
guy,
Yeah.
and then everything. They don't say the V word to them until and then they get there and they say, "Oh crap!" Like you said, they like the whole time he doesn't say anything, even covers her in a sheet, and the guy's like wondering what's going on, or
Right,
whatever.
yeah.
And I'm like, don't you ever know what a fucking vampire looks like, or whatever? Like that's, I
Yeah.
don't know. I would have loved a little bit more explanation. I would have loved uh, some more character development, especially with the vampires, because I feel like honestly, I would have loved more time with the vampires and less time with the mercenaries. I know those
Right,
are
I did
supposed to be
too.
the good guys, but like they weren't that good. I mean, even us just talking about this, X is toxic, dude.
Yeah.
Like the dude is trying, like he loves her. If he loved her, that whole line, if you love someone, set them free. If they come
Right.
back to you, it's meant to be. She ain't coming back, bro. She's not interested in you. She wants to be she likes this vampire life because, it's what she enjoys. She enjoys having power and control and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly,
And
yeah.
at the end, she gets to be now, I guess it's good that they killed Elizabeth for her sake because now she's the leader of everything.
Right, yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's what I'm saying is that I do agree with you. I think there's a lot here that maybe it was just a little too ambitious for this type of a budget. Maybe if, scale it down a little, maybe eliminate some of these, plot points. Maybe it could have, it felt a little bit more fleshed out where it's not trying to cram so many, stories in. Because,
fleshed
you've got,
out,
that's what I'm saying is that, you've got
no
the
pun
mercenary.
intended. Because, yeah,
Exactly, yeah. Because you've got the mercenary backstory, you've got, the boyfriend backstory, you've got the vampire backstories, plus you've got those whole truce in town. So maybe, skip out on something and put a little bit more time and effort into, maybe keeping these two or three little storylines together instead of trying to cram four of them into this type of a film. But yeah, if you get past the confusion, it's not bad. I enjoyed my time with it. It's a fun film. I mean, I still vividly remember old me saying, titties and gore. What a fun time.
yeah. I mean, I get that. Like, I don't mind that. Now, Tim Gross, who owns Gross Fest, I'm sure you know who Tim is.
Yeah.
He played Mugger in this. Who is the Mugger? I don't remember Mugger. Was that cut out? Maybe?
Mm,
Was there
I'm
a
trying
Mugger
to.
in this movie?
the only one I can think of, and maybe I'm wrong, wasn't he the one that the vicious vampire attacked? Because they have the one vampire held up in the basement.
Hmm.
Maybe that's the one victim that we see her attack.
I don't
I don't
remember.
know.
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
I'm trying to,
I
now
don't
that you
remember
say
a
that,
mugging, so I can't.
because it's not the old boyfriend, because he was abusive.
Yeah, he wasn't a
So
mugger, I don't think.
yeah,
He
that
was.
because I'm saying, because he shows up in because he takes her into the alley and then beats her, and then
Right.
Elizabeth shows up, kills him, and then takes her. So yeah, that's not a mugging, unless maybe he's one of the townsfolk.
Mm-hmm.
Unless he's like, one of, because the first time we're introduced to everybody, they're in this like small town pool hall,
You're right. But
and
I
that's
mean, a mugger for
I'm
that,
trying to
like,
that's what I'm saying, is that I'm trying to think back on that scene there, and I don't remember anybody doing anything other than, playing pool or sitting at a bar
right.
drinking. Like, I don't remember anybody else like that named a mugger.
Yeah. So I don't think I think there might have been stuff that was cut out or stuff that wasn't fully explained for it. So I don't know. I don't know. All I can say is also, who was April Burrell, who, plays Chainsaw Sally, and her husband Jimmy O? Like, they're in the movie, but I don't remember. Were they the two people in the beginning that have the threesome?
I think so. It's been a while since I've seen her in anything. I
Yeah,
think they're the threesome couple.
okay, I was gonna say, because I think so, because that would sort of make sense, but I couldn't tell. It's been a while since I'd seen them too and stuff, and I love them.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I love my Chainsaw Sally, but I just have not seen it in forever, and I need to
I
rewatch that stuff,
That's what I'm saying. I remember watching it when it came out, but I don't think I've seen it since.
Yeah, those guys are really cool people. It's really funny because, like, you got Mike Watt and Amy Lynn Best, who are a married couple who make, these movies together, right? Then you got Jimmy O and April, who are a married couple who make these movies together. And then there was, I don't know if they do this anymore. They've done directing, or there's Mark Baranowski and Riley Morgan who do stuff together, and I
I
adore
talked
them.
with Riley last year for my Women in Horror Month thing, and the last thing I remember
Exactly.
her, because I remember looking up her IMDb to get
Hello?
her.
Ah,
Hello?
what's going on? Sorry. Right.
Oh no, I was gonna say I talked to Riley for my Women in Horror Month thing last year, and the most recent thing I picked up was maybe 2015, I think. So I don't know if that's anything, if like she's done anything on her end or not, but that was, I think, the last thing I remember her seeing her on her IMDb.
Uh, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Well, hey, I'm just gonna put you on this
Hey,
real quick. Just
I
real.
can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I could actually hear you earlier. I'm just my microphone just fucked up on my thing, so I'm just gonna keep you on here for now. You might hear
Mm.
dogs barking and other shit for a second, so that's this house, but I don't usually have it on this. I gotta fix whatever this issue is later. Yeah, we're almost done anyway with with the review
Mm.
because I mean there's not much else to talk about. But no, I talked to Riley Morgan like the other day, I think it was not yesterday, maybe it was yesterday when I was watching this movie, and stuff. So
Mm.
I love Riley. I think she's amazing. I love Mark. I love all the people here. I would love to see all of them in one movie, Like
Yeah, that'd be great.
I know Riley, I believe, was in severe injuries and with Mark. And so it's funny because they use their couples because they're all friends, and everything. So, and I think Riley said she was supposed to be in this movie, but she might have been pregnant or something, she wasn't able to make it. Don't
Mm.
quote me on that, but I think that's sort of what happened. So, you know, it is one of those things. So I love Riley. I think she's amazing. I love Amy Lynn Best. I love Mike Watt. I love all of them. Like I have no problem. I just and so when we kind of criticize this stuff, it's not us saying this was bad or anything. It's just
Yeah. Yeah.
that we're just kind of wish that things were more fleshed out, more understood, more, you know.
Exactly. I mean, I still have this rated pretty highly overall. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's it's still a very fun time. When you get past the confusion, the thing zips along. I mean, like we said, it's only an hour and 18 minutes, so there, it's got something going on. You know, it's got some fun scenes. The two confrontations that they have in the brothel are pretty well staged. The threesome scene is really gruesome. You see like a lot
Mm,
of like like they're both like covered in blood, and you get like really good looking wounds on the one guy who gets his I think he gets his neck bitten, or is it his shoulder? Because I know that they lean in and they bite like that part of his body, but I can't tell if it's like a bite on
yeah,
his.
I don't remember
Yeah, but
exactly.
there's some decent wounds there, and it tries for something. I mean, again, it's a little confusing, but it tries.
Mm,
Injecting holy water into your veins. I think that's a fun concept. Explain it a little more, but I think
yeah,
it's a fun concept. How things other than crosses burn your skin. Fun concept. Explain it.
yep. Well, there you go. That's
So
pretty much sums it up then.
yeah,
Just just explain these little things, But I'm sure because this was probably just, made as soon as they could possibly make it, that maybe it should have had another draft for the script and stuff.
yeah,
But aside from that, I like the characters. Would this be a movie I'd watch again? Yes, I would watch this again, definitely. Especially for Deborah Shaw, because I just love seeing her and everything. So,
yeah,
and Amy had a great time, it looked like, working with her. So that's wonderful. We definitely recommend seeing it on Tubi if you haven't seen it already. You kind of know what happened, so oh well, you know. Um, Watch it anyway because it's
yeah,
support indie films. And you're a big proprietor of indie films. Like you like indie films, you champion it.
yeah.
And in fact, you help people with their Indiegogo's and stuff. You like promote their stuff and you promote podcasts. A lot of them, mostly, I think all of them do movie podcasts, right? These are all movie podcasts.
Yeah, I think just for time sake, it's generally movie reviews. I do a few interview shows, just mostly those are from friends though. So
Mm.
it's not that I'm against it. It's just one where if I didn't, I'd be stuck at home all day just writing these things up.
You'd just
So
be writing everybody's podcast. Everybody
yeah,
has a podcast and their mother.
exactly. Yeah.
So
So
that's kind of what happens these days. And
yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not against it, but the ones that I do, it's usually from friends. So
yeah, and when I started on like Blog Talk Radio back in 2006 when nobody was doing podcasts. Everybody thought I was an idiot for doing a podcast. What is that? I don't care about that. That's stupid. That's never gonna be a thing. And then now everybody has it, like people in my real life, that have nothing to do with my film or that world, or whatever, they'll be like, so I have this idea for a podcast. What do you think of this? And I'm like, do it. I mean, I don't know. Like if it works, it works. If it doesn't, who cares? Like then you move on to something else. But me, I'm a champion for, I did it, because I saw a friend of mine do it, and he uh you know his was completely different than what I wanted to do. He's more comedy, based and pranks and stuff like that, and that's not something I wanted to do. But I was like, I want to, interview, B movie people, and that's what I set out to do, and I still do that. So to this day. So
Mm.
there you go. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this show. And I will have you guys back on. We will I guess we will chat about this. Like we'll chat more. We'll have more episodes. Like, was it tomorrow will be a brand new episode. Next day, I think, all the way. So I just want to thank you again, Don, for this. This has been awesome having you on the show and chatting with you. We'll definitely have you back for something else. I know, did you ever do Indie Film Cafe with us yet? The actual Indie Film Cafe?
No, because the only one I've done is with you for 31 Days of Indie Horror. I still haven't done the main show yet.
Dude, we need to do more of that stuff with you.
Yeah,
Like, let's get you on those shows or whatever. We got plenty of those there for you, and you are an awesome dude, and I really appreciate you coming on. So,
yeah, this was fun.
yeah.
Just let me know.
All right. Everybody else, once again, join me tomorrow. Brand new guests, brand new movie. I have no idea what's next, and I don't even want to guess. So until then, everybody, have a good one. Bye.
Later.